Okay, so do you remember me from last time?
Your voice sounds familiar, but feel free to just jump right in.
Okay, well, I was the guy that called and said that I was hearing the woman's voice, and she spoke to me through the TV and the radio.
Okay, yes, I remember
that. Rings
that.
a bell, yeah.
Okay, well, I found out the lady's name. Her name is Wisdom, and she's in the Bible, and not only in the Bible, the Emerald Tablet. They refer to her as a her for a reason, because it's a very feminine, voice. But the fact that you're surrounded by a bunch of atheists, I kind of figured your brain is already, or your subconscious is already like primed, and your decision is already made. So do you mind if I, set a schema up?
I'm not sure what you're asking, but why don't you go ahead and we'll let you know if there's any objection.
Okay. Well, basically, a schema is like I'm putting like something. I'm subconsciously influencing a certain behavioral pattern in order to get a certain response.
Give it a shot. Let's see how it rolls.
All right. So this is from the Bible. I'm not a Christian. I'm just using this because I think this will be the perfect schema. Good sense make one slow to anger, and his glory is to overlook an offense. Okay. So also in the Emerald Tablets it says that a fool regards to wisdom to a fool is regarded as ignorance. And basically, what I'm trying to say is, all right, first example, in Genesis, it talks about, and the Lord God formed man of dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Why I bring up that is because there's science to that. If you look at the elements that are in
Dante, can I just interrupt you for 1 minute? I'm just curious, where are we going with this?
Oh, well, I'm just trying to show you that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
A lot more to what?
Like the Bible, there's a lot of...
But you just said you're not a Christian.
Oh, I'm not a Christian.
Okay, so why is the Bible relevant to you or to us?
Oh, the Bible is relevant because it's not just the Bible, but I also study the Kabbalah, and in the Kabbalah it says go to your roots, and my roots being raised as a Baptist, which I'm like I said, I'm an existentialist.
Okay, so what ultimately what would be the goal of the conversation that we're having?
The goal of the conversation would basically to be informed. I don't really care if y'all believe me or not.
Well, I care if we believe you or not, though. I do, because I can't just let people call and talk and then I don't agree with them, and so I need to know what is the goal,
okay.
like what we're trying to establish here. Okay,
so the verse that I just read about man being created from dust and God blowing into our life into the man's nostrils. What do you think of that? What are your opinions on that?
Well, go ahead, John.
I don't see what you think is scientific about that. you're reading stuff to us from the Bible, but we don't consider the Bible to be particularly authoritative about anything.
Okay, well, here's the scientific part I'm trying to get at. In the soil, the elements that are found in soil are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, iron, bromine, magnesium, zinc, molybdenum, and copper. The elements in the human body, phosphorus, potassium, there's trace elements of copper.
I would think anything that evolved or exists on a planet where those elements exist would have, shared elements. That's not earth-shattering.
And it says that God blew into, man's nostrils.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's any scientific basis for that.
Well, basically, what it's saying is the breath of life. When you breathe, if you're a healthy individual, a healthy human being, you're more than likely to breathe out of your nostrils.
I don't think that's what that's saying. What that is saying is that a God endowed life into a man made of clay. And I don't agree that that's factual. I think it's one of many origin myths from many cultures. You know, the fact that we can look at what really happens and draw some parallels and say, like, oh, it says man came from the earth, and you say, well, science says man came from the earth. Oh, well, yes, and you know, that's not surprising because we live on the earth. So the idea in many cultures of people coming from the earth in some way, going back to Greeks and, you know, Romans and even before, is very common, because where else would we have come from in their minds, right? Like maybe you might get something where we came from the stars or whatnot, but
we did come.
But in essence, this is nothing. This is nothing unexpected, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, basically, the lady came back, and basically what the lady told me was that we're in a simulation, and that the reason why she was able to talk to me through the radio and shit is because she's able to control the simulation. But there's like a frequency our bodies are.
Now we're getting somewhere, Dante. Now we're getting somewhere. So you say that she actually does come through the radio on a frequency that is audible. Is that correct?
It's not just
correct. This is not just in your head. She's actually broadcasting on a frequency that is audible through a radio. Is that what you're saying?
It's not just the radio, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, so then you should be able to record her. Have you done this?
The thing is, the reason why she speaks to me is because...
But she speaks to you on a radio frequency, which should be recordable. Have you recorded her?
All right, this is... I don't know how to explain this.
I think it's understandable. Radio frequencies are something that we understand. And if she's recording, if she's actually broadcasting through a radio frequency, through a radio, she should be recordable. What you're hearing is actually auditory, not a mental construct in your brain that you're making up. She's actually speaking to you through a radio frequency. Have you recorded her?
I haven't recorded it.
Can you make an attempt to record her so that other people can hear her? I would really appreciate that. In fact, I would say let's discontinue the call, and next time you call, get her on a recording.
Wait.
And let's hear that.
Can I please just, like, can you please just humor me? This is all I want. And it's crazy because
no, it's actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, now you've finally said something that we can actually test. We can actually, try this out. We can prove what you're describing is correct by simply making recordings of the woman that's speaking to you through these devices. I mean, you have more here than most Christians come to the table with,
and that's
you're
the
not
scientific.
even a Christian.
That's the scientific approach. So if you're wanting to kind of equate science with what some of the things you're reading in the Bible, then this is a kind of a scientific way of validating what you're experiencing.
Yeah, the other thing is if someone is speaking to you through a radio, I would then want to make sure that, how do we know that this isn't coming from someone else, that someone's not playing a trick, that someone's not. So if it's coming through a radio, if someone's broadcasting through your radio, go ahead and make a recording of that. That would be the first step. And let's at least,
Can you just humor me? Like, I'm not trying to, y'all don't have to believe me. I'm just...
No, we don't have to believe you. You can just record it. We can actually experience it by having you record it.
The way it happens, it's like when I told you about the experience with me and I told you my grandma walked through the door, as soon as my grandma walked through the door, it stopped.
Well, that's why Tracie
but
suggested
you can
recording.
record it when you're alone, right?
Yeah.
Your grandma doesn't have to, no one else has to be there. She'll speak to you when you're alone, record it on your cell phone. Record it on your computer, whatever it is. If she talks to you when you're alone, you can record when you're alone. I remember a particular case study when I was reading a paper on, I forget exactly what it's called now, but it's a way to kind of work with people when they're having delusions. And one of the things that they tried in this case study was they asked the woman to go and record the voices that she was hearing. And when she made the recording, there was nothing there, and she realized that this was just her hallucinating. Now, wait a minute. If there had actually been voices on that recording, it would have been very interesting, because then people would say, okay, well, then we need to investigate what it is that's actually coming through. Who is this voice and what is this voice? But if you have somebody that has explained to you that they're actually they're actually broadcasting to you on a radio frequency, that should be recordable. And so my recommendation would be to go ahead and try to make a recording of that. If nothing comes through on the recording, you may want to go and seek some help for this.
Well, can I tell you, like, for anybody else that wants to hear basically what's going on, because there are biologists and physicists that have came to the same conclusion. Like, this isn't just me type thing. Like, basically,
well, come to what conclusion though? That there's a woman talking on the radio, or
all right. Like our cells and our DNA being programmed by our environment. And
well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say that's that is kind of a rough description of evolution.
Would you think of yourself as, so do you believe in psychic abilities?
I've never seen anything demonstrated to be effective that way, and
I haven't really either.
Controlled tests.
But I think at this point, though...
But you believe in evolution, though.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything psychic about it.
No, what I'm saying is you don't think that later on down the line we will develop... I don't know.
I mean, it would depend on... I mean, right now, I never thought that I would be able to turn my TV channel from sitting in a chair, but here we are, right? So I don't know. Maybe we will have some sort of chip that gives us, they say biomechanics is like the next step in human evolution. So who knows where this will go? I can't predict. But I will say, next time you call Dante, go ahead and have that recording ready. And if you don't get a recording, I really recommend you go and speak to a professional. I want to thank you for your call.